Call this regular scheduled meeting of March 27, 2018 of the Plain Township Board of Trustees to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we have the agenda before us. Are there any deletions, additions, corrections to the agenda?
I have an addition. Parts 2, thank yous.
Anyone else?
I have a number 4 for fire. Hiring of new paramedics.
All right, I like that. Any others? Mr. Hawes, Mr. Lino?
No, thank you.
Law Director? No one else? Okay. And the agenda will stand as edited. And we will move to the Sheriff's monthly report. Sergeant Koenig, you going to do that for us tonight?
Yes. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
We should have the February 2018 monthly report in front of you. Our calls for service, again, we're up slightly, about 10% with 1,204. Our crashes and crashes with injury were both up significantly. Respectfully, I think we've handled all the crashes in the township. I don't believe any of them have been were kicked over to the state for February. We handled everything. If we had a car available, they went and they handled it. So you're going to see, I think, a big trend with the crashes and crashes with injury over the next months. If we have a car available, they're going to take it, and it's not going to. And if we don't have somebody available, we're going to try to pend it so we can take it and handle everything from the township. So you're going to see an increased number with those, I believe, in the next coming months. Our alarms were up slightly, 16% with 101. Traffic stops were up significantly, 70% with 208 for the month, while our citations were down slightly. We still had 100 citations. And our arrests were up again with 109% with 71 total. We completed 815 vacation checks, and Detective Ross was very busy for February with 29 assigned cases. He had a theft of a motor vehicle closed and 3 thefts along with that were closed. That's all I have. The year-to-year looks kind of expected to see an uptick in the trend from year to year, but I think this year with the bodies that we have, our calls, our stops, proactive enforcement is just going to go up from here. So we'll see an increase.
Can I bring you back to the alarms? When you said the alarms are up, which I see, is that false alarms or are those actual break-ins alarms going on?
Those are alarms.
Just
Those are any alarm, any
false versus break-ins versus there's just a lot of alarms going on.
It's all business, and when we do the alarms, it's our business and residential, just the alarm calls that we receive. I can tell you a great number of them are false. We fill out a lot of alarm cards. Very few are actually legitimate alarms that somebody's breaking in. Very small number.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Anything else? No? Thank you.
All right, thank you.
All right, that takes us to unfinished business.
Thank you. I have a resolution by the Plain Township Board of Trustees to enter into the attached 2018 yard waste post-site block grant agreement between Plain Township and the Joint Solid Waste District to host the block grant not to exceed $56,388 for expenses associated with the yard waste site.
So moved. Second. It's been moved and seconded. Discussion.
I did double check that the $56,000 included the additional monies that were given at the executive committee meeting, and then The rest of us will work as a team to follow the contract and the disbursements.
And pretty much as we kind of look to see what's going on around the county, there's just about every jurisdiction that is in this program is looking at some kind of cutback or some type of reduction or some type of routine that hopefully they'll be able to work within their budgeted money. So we're not the only ones. As a matter of fact, I'm guessing people are calling us wondering what we are doing.
They have
They'll
that.
probably be following suit, so.
I wanted to ask Scott, I know, we all got that same email, that those poor concerned residents in the alley. Is there any way we can't really entertain the thought of seeing if Jackson would join us in putting something together as one up in that area for those people, or?
My understanding, and I had actually called a resident once sitting in the airport to burn some time. And when we were talking, she understood like the most of the logistics and why it happened. But as far as when she started asking about sites, the insight that I had provided her, I've heard David say it, or, I think Steve Tharp is a contact over there now, where really the Joint Solid Waste District has tended to pick some of these site locations, and that's how they've ended up. So I know in my dialogue with her, I said, outside of really the township owning a clear piece of property to dispose of this stuff, there was nothing that I was specifically aware of, and I had communicated that, and she said she was, she appreciated the explanation, was frustrated, and, I went into, the same explanation of, we were warned up front, something was coming, but then unfortunately we found out after they went on, did the dog and pony show on the road, instead of circling back to the affected parties first. So I think the reality is, and you know this as well as anybody from the board, especially with where you're at, there's no good way to Jackson Township, and there's even worse of a no good way for Plain Township, because you've got high traffic roadway, and even with it being strapped tarp, maybe strapped down, which that's probably a small fraction of the crew based upon the folks that we've seen driving along the roadways. I really don't know
Any good route for them?
any other good route to go, because the lady's first comment, she's like, I'm not even gonna waste my time driving to Jackson, and from at least some of the speculative comments, Jackson may not even, correct?
Then they
I
privatized, or?
think I read, was it in their newsletter, they said that they're gonna be open Saturday and Sunday, that's it, in Jackson?
I can't remember, I know it's 2 days a week.
It was 2 days a week.
Yeah.
I feel for them, and I just didn't know if their thought.
I know, I talked with the trustees up, a couple of the guys up in Lake, because, they're shifting all their stuff over to Medcur's, but, when I told them what we were doing, they're like, oh, we can't even begin to think of cutting ours that low, and I'm like, well, they do 7 days a week, and I'm like, we did that in the fall, but never, ever year round. I said, we're going from 3 to 2, and I said, you gotta change people's behavior to a degree, but I'm not aware of a hangout.
Okay.
Thanks, Scott.
Anything else? Roll call, please.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Mr. Haas?
Yes.
And that ends unfinished business.
That takes us right into new business.
Thank you. I have a resolution by the Plain Township trustees to approve the below persons to participate in the Leaders Essential Certificate at Kent State University, actually the corporate university, on May 15th and 16th.
So moved.
Second. It's been moved and seconded. Discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Mr. Haas?
Yes.
And then item 2, I'll turn over to Mr. Iacino.
Yeah, we received a request from the Hall of Fame and ODOT, and that letter is the second letter on there, requesting to use Broad Avenue and Fulton Road as a detour once they close the southbound 77 ramp next Monday. And after discussion amongst all of us, we think that was an appropriate thing to send all that traffic on a township road coming off of a state road. And we met with, Lisa and I met with Kevin Shipwick yesterday, and we changed that to Broad Avenue to 17th Street to Harrison, right into the Hall of Fame that way. So they're actually not traveling, they got a half a block off one of our streets, and that's it. So we didn't want, and we know people are gonna find their way. That's always gonna happen. We didn't want them to advertise that that was the detour. That was the bottom line.
Which is a good call.
Yeah, so Scott, you've got several phone calls from over there too. So.
Yeah, and I mean, after Kevin sent that, I had a call, and I mean, he actually texted me, I think, right after he met with Lisa and Joe, because I called Joe and said, okay, what's the great big plan? I mean, honestly, I just conveyed, again, the fact, when you look at funding and so forth, our residents agreed to a levy renewal and increase to pave and maintain and improve upon our life cycle replacement, not to subsidize infrastructure work that has to be done due to a project that does not reside within the township. And I mean, to Kevin's credit, he was open, receptive, and understood it. So I can tell you, at least from what Lisa and Joe had told me, as well as Kevin, I feel like it's the best effort that's there. And I conveyed to Kevin and them, you know, small project trucks, okay, yeah, there's a higher volume, but okay, no big deal. It's the Class B and Class A type of equipment that's hauling, whether it's equipment, aggregate, material. It was really the concern, and I said, the only way we'd really, you know, probably even remotely consider it is now we're starting to talk about like a RUMA, road user maintenance agreement, like they do with oil and gas, where you'd have to go out, and that means ultimately dollars out of their pocket if that was something. So I think this is the win-win. As Joe said, we're still going to have cars that weasel their way around it. And there's nothing can ever do to stop that.
No, but
People find their own. I mean, I had to find my own route.
at least we're not, at least we're not detouring people who aren't from here
Correct,
in that direction, which again, you start stacking people up on Broad,
correct.
and we have residents there, and they're trying to get in and out of their drives, and you got people who are already impatient, and they're not gonna stop to let those people out, and, I mean, there are a number of issues, and, you know, I don't care what anybody says, you know, when a street's normally getting X amount of traffic, and now all of a sudden you double or triple that traffic,
Not good.
and we push Broad Avenue maybe 2 years ahead in a repaving plan, and now all of a sudden it has to get moved up to 1 year, then that messes up your whole 5-year plan, and, you know, it's not fair to us or our residents.
No.
But, like you say, I think it was equitable for everybody, and I think we
Because
worked that out.
honestly, the other point that they had called out in here is and it's not technically us, but you get off the 13th Street exit, you're in the left-hand lane,
Oh, it's terrible.
stacking, then trying to go under 77, that's already a nightmare with
That's-
normal traffic, let alone, oh my God.
Correct.
Poor sheriffs and the police officers would be
Correct.
freaking dealing with irate
It's
people.
gonna be a lot backup traffic.
It's gonna be,
We experienced that once for a period of time when the bridges were closed. They closed one side to be able to go west, and then they closed the other side to be able to go east. That was a nightmare for us, because, you know, that literally cut us off in our ability both times to either go east to west or west to east by all those fire companies. And, you know, this is gonna be, it's gonna be a matter of patience for a lot of people. There's gonna be traffic backed up.
gonna be
And there's nowhere to put them. There's only so many places that you're gonna put all those vehicles with all those lights. They're gonna be timed the same way. So, and they're already stacking up there, even with normal traffic.
Well, I live there, of course, and at 5:20 yesterday, I just looked at that ramp coming on, 62 coming on to Fulton, or probably, so they probably all joined. It was backed, always up to where they come around to go on to 77. That's how bad it was.
And it's a normal day.
And that's a normal day. So now all those people gotta be detoured from there to go where else, where they're going. And the majority of them that are going on Fulton, they're gonna have to go on to 13th Street. And that's gonna be a mess, because there's been days on 13th Street alone, and that's a mess.
Do you remember when they were recently working on Fulton Road, how bad that traffic was all day long.
Yeah.
It's gonna be
But the good news is it's supposed to be done in July.
July 25th, the initial is supposed to be done. There's more work going to follow
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, that's their first.
Well, I just appreciate everybody getting involved in that collectively.
Joe fighting
With a
for it,
solution.
Joe's.
Absolutely.
You're fighting, Joe was persistent on, you can't dump that onto our street as detours. And Trustee Hall said it best, the taxpayers, they are paying for those levies, and we want to keep the road conditioning as is, so.
Okay, anything else on that? Number 3.
Number 3 is a resolution to approve and authorize payment to various vendors from the blanket purchase order for equipment purchased for the 2018 sheriff cruisers in an amount not to exceed $60,000 from Fund 09807.
So moved.
Second, it's been moved and seconded, discussion.
You'll
Just to
see
clarify.
the, oh, sorry, you'll see the attached on the next page has the breakdown.
And this is, Sergeant Hall, what did you say we were able to save when you pulled these numbers?
Yeah,
together?
well,
We
with,
were just talking, I just think it's important.
just with the mobile vision, they have a promotion going on through the 30th, and after the 30th, the price would go up like another almost $3,000.
Total, $3,000 total.
Yeah, so,
Timing for us is good then.
Yeah. And you'll see, we at this time are adding additional shotguns. Months and months ago, that's when we started purchasing our own shotguns, as Plain Township didn't have their own, was borrowing from the sheriff's office, so we're adding in some additional shotguns at this time.
Guys, are the rifles the ones that we just started procuring locally as well?
yeah.
All right, good job on that. So that will take us then to the fiscal
Oh,
officers.
you have to pass the resolution,
Oh, I'm
if you so
roll
choose
call.
to.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, Mark. Those dipsticks didn't even pass the motion last night. You get to have a special meeting then.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Lino.
Yes.
Mr. Sabo.
Sure, yes.
Mr. Hawes.
Yes.
Now we'll go to the fiscal officer's report, Mr. Wolf.
Thank you. Fiscal Officer number 1 is a request for resolution to authorize the payment of pending warrants in the amount of $380,808.83.
I'll move on. Fiscal officer number 1.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded, discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Fiscal Officer number 2 is a request for resolution to authorize the payment of regular payroll in an amount not to exceed $250,000.
So moved.
Second. Mr. Lino, second. It's been moved and seconded, discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Fiscal Officer number 3 is a request for resolution to authorize payment for the following medical claims.
I'll move on. Fiscal officer number 3.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded, discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Fiscal Officer number 4 is the investment report for the month of February. If there's any questions, I'll be available after the meeting. Fiscal Officer number 5 is the bank reconciliation for the month of February. Again, if there's any questions, I'm available after the meeting. Fiscal Officer number 6 is a request for resolution to authorize the following transfers.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded, discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Fiscal Officer number 7 is a request for a new liquor license by Naka Boutique LLC located at 3110 Whipple Avenue Northwest, Suite 3, Canton, Ohio 44718. The Sheriff's Department didn't have any concerns.
Is that up by Grinders?
Yeah, I believe it's in the plaza by Grinders.
Has to be in that block. Has to be in that block.
There's
We'll just move forward.
Yeah.
Any concerns? Anything that you guys can think of? I'll just move forward.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fiscal Officer number 8 is a request for resolution to authorize the additional benefits of longevity pay to members of the Utility Workers Union of America, AFL-CIO, Local 561, who meet the requirements of the attached schedule effective April 1, 2018.
I'll move on. Fiscal officer number 8.
I'll second it.
It's been moved and seconded. Discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
And that concludes the fiscal officer report.
Thanks, Mr. Wolf. That takes us to our administrator.
Thank you. The first resolution before the board is a resolution to adopt the Plain Township handbook revision for the attached Plain Township policy pre-disciplinary conference section.
So moved.
Second. Been moved and seconded. Discussion.
There's updates in there about the conference, including just making it clear about the outside appointed council, and now the township, besides the administrator, but other members of our team can place somebody on unpaid or paid administrative leave, depending on the circumstances. There's some changes in there.
Yeah, that's good. That helps department heads.
Yeah.
So that's good. Anything else? Roll call.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Thank you. The second resolution is to authorize employees who assist in staffing special events as needed and to pay employees from account 01B01A.
So moved.
Second. It's been moved and seconded. Discussion.
Yes, that's a general fund account. For example, for the Easter egg hunt, almost all the administrative assistants participated, spent the day over there working pretty hard, and it's only right that they're paid from the account that's having the event versus, you know, fire, road, or zoning.
That's better.
Mhm.
Anything else? Roll call.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Item number 3 is a resolution to adopt the attached Plain Township concealed carry by retired law enforcement officer policy pursuant to the Ohio Revised Code, section 2923.126B7, and the Law Enforcement Officer Safety Act 18, USC 926C.
So moved.
Second. It's been moved and seconded. Discussion.
Yes, this is an act that I've been talking with Eric about, the sheriff's office, Springer, also Sheriff Meyer, where there is a retired law enforcement officer policy which allows retired law enforcement officers who are in good standing to carry a concealed weapon into any building owned and operated by the township. However, the four numbered items below are items that have to be met and have to at times be renewed. So always having to carry that picture ID, not obviously be under the influence of alcohol or any other substances. Number 3 is the big one, that they have to have successfully completed the retired officer carry firearms course, and that's the important one there. And also important is to comply with all federal and state statutes as a retired law enforcement officer. With that said, so far, that would just apply to Vince. As soon as we can have Tom, who we know is from Las Vegas, complete that retired officer carry firearms course, it would apply to him also.
Okay.
Just giving, you know, what's been happening even in our local schools, what we've seen around the country, when there's been active shooter events. It's come to a quicker resolution when an appropriate law enforcement official was carrying.
Anything else? Roll call.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Thank you. Lastly is a resolution by the Board of Trustees to adopt the Plain Township Handbook revision solicitation policy effective immediately.
So moved.
Second. It's been moved and seconded. Discussion.
This has been reviewed with all the township department heads who feel that this is a very important policy. Although it does prohibit soliciting fellow co-workers for just about everything, That doesn't stop somebody on their work time, on their break or lunch or on their off time if they want to sell a product. And it does give room to support township-initiated causes, like for instance, our firefighters when they do, the breast cancer awareness or any of their events, as long as it's township authorized.
Just takes the pressure off employees.
It
that
sure does.
There may be this expectation of.
I bought from you, you better buy from me.
Correct.
And also, it does eliminate any activities such as loaning money to coworkers or doing, sports pools. Again, it could be done off premises, on their own time, but certainly not at the township.
Anything else? Roll call.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
And that ends the administrator's report.
Thank you. That takes us to Fire Chief Schomburg.
Okay, thank you. Number one is our monthly report. February.
It's been pretty busy with some pretty bad fires over the last month.
Yes, we've had our share of fires this month, February and March.
Every time somebody does it.
Anytime you have people that can get out the door and get there, that's,
Just a quick question. On the mutual aid given for Canton Township Fire Department, how many of those, if any of them, would apply to the village of Myers Lake?
That's a good question.
Well,
Just if you can ballpark, I don't expect.
the Canton Township, because they are, I guess you say, in that zone, they're putting them in as Plain Township. So, they're not coming up as a mutual aid given. Because I don't have a spot for Myers Lake yet, we're adding that. So, but the Canton Township Fire on non-EMS, that would be somewhere in physically Canton Township, not in Myers Lake Village.
Okay, thank you.
We should be able to break that out. I could do it by address, but in that report, it doesn't
Okay. No, that's
filter that way.
just given the circumstances we're trying to manage through.
What'd you get from Greentown?
Uh,
Says one given, received.
We call them for, engines along Mount Pleasant, up and through there. It's an automatic
what's
response.
that? Northwest corner.
Okay.
Okay, thanks, Chief.
Item number 2 is a resolution by Plain Township Board of Trustees to extend an offer of employment to the following candidates: Joshua Amstutz, Stephen Fuchs Jr., Joel Gladys, Michael Hinkle, Cody Jenner, Stephen Jokey, Christopher Palmieri, and Ross Weimer for position of part-time probationary firefighter, paramedic EMTs, contingent upon a physical exam, pre-employment drug screening, and any final interviews, with rates set at $15.50 for paramedics and $14.50 for EMTBs. We know benefits with that.
So moved.
Second, it's been moved and seconded, discussion.
I just think it's important to note for the sake of the public, this just continues to carry through on our levy commitments for staffing while chiefs introduce an element that helps us build our bench strength as we encounter, retirements and so forth. And quite frankly, the process is extensive. We've all sat and saw some of the testing down at the new fire training facility. So continuing to deliver upon residents' expectations for the resources they provided us.
Absolutely. And it also creates somewhat of a pool that if you have a position that's open, you have a pool of people that you can look at that you've already seen for a while.
Right.
We're kind of getting to the spot with the fire department, we're starting to get to the 25 and 28-year remarks for some of the guys, so we'll see some
Sure.
retirements, and then, and obviously gives us, some manpower too at the same time, so.
Anything else? Roll call.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Item number 3 is a resolution by the Plain Township Board of Trustees to authorize purchase and payment and shipping for personal protective equipment for replacement gear for existing employees and new hires from Fire Force Eagle Emergency.
So moved.
Seconded.
It's been moved and seconded, discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
And item number 4, we did get all the results back for the full-time people that we're hiring to replace a couple and to expand. Have a resolution by the Plain Township Board of Trustees, Stark County, Ohio, to hire Andrew Byler, Wayne Conroy, Logan Hinkle, Ryan Jones, position of firefighter, paramedic class 2, effective 7 a.m. on April 16, 2018, with a 12-month probationary period.
I'll move on FD number 4.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded, discussion. This is obviously within the plan, so.
Right, a couple of them were for retirements, and one's an expansion. We're trying to get to having more staff every day, and with the levy that we have, we're moving forward to do that. Between the part-time and the full-time we're adding, we'll have hopefully 15 people each morning to start with, and then 15.
Very good. Anything else? Roll call.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes. Thanks, Chief. That takes us to road, Mr. Iacino.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, item number 1 is the February monthly report. You can see we did a lot of patching.
Yeah. Didn't have any ice jams, I guess that's pretty good.
And Mr. Lino, before you asked me, I kind of had a feeling you might, I know we're behind
Sweeping.
our sweepers. The weather hasn't let us. We're hoping next week if the weather stays warm enough. They are ready to go.
We may need to put a little bit of grit down there.
That's right.
Just to test out the
After
sweeper.
this past
You
week.
know,
Yeah.
Mr. Aquino, I wish Mr. Hawes was around when the Grit Man was.
No, he grew up with it, so.
I would love,
I grew up with that. That was the most miserable.
Yeah.
I mean, we used to get a call from that gentleman about the grit.
In his garage.
His garage. That was you, right?
It was awful, but you and I met with him, and somehow, whatever we said didn't work. It was crazy, so that's still instilled in my head when we started sweeping, I can still hear him yelling at us about the grit.
All right, number 2, we got to see the brine truck today.
Discussion, these pictures actually do much justice. It is sitting out front for you, everyone to
I think
look
it's
at.
unbelievable.
First of all, I just want to thank Chuck for giving us the opportunity to have that truck.
Jeez, that is just.
And I was so impressed with our mechanics' ability to build that truck from a chassis to
They are
what it is right
amazing.
now.
Yeah.
Boy, I'd like to have 15 of those guys, and they are unbelievable. They kept at it for a total cost of $17,500 for a truck that's probably, right now, being the GU's truck 150, but if we had to buy that new, it would have cost $250,000.
Unbelievable.
Again, optimizing township assets, collaboration.
You know, the fabrication and the stuff that Dawn and Logan did on that was just amazing to me. So I find myself staring at it during the day. So after the meeting, if you have time, I have the keys if you want to get up in it.
Oh, yeah. But he said,
Just make sure you pass that along, our appreciation along to those guys as well.
beautiful. You really cover half of the roads on one tank,
More than likely,
more,
yeah.
and then reload it up.
Reload, there's the main roads. Those are for main roads and any bad hills we have.
That's all that pre-treated stuff, right?
Is that the one that puts out that little, you see him on the roads, that little line that's going, is that what
Yeah.
that is?
Yeah.
That little line?
That's what that'll be.
That'll do.
Yeah.
Yeah, it keeps the roads from freezing
Because
longer.
it's hoping the tires will pick it up and
That's
move
awesome.
it all over the place.
But we actually have one of those ourselves now.
Yes.
Where's it stored at, Joe? You got a place to store it?
No, it's in the garage down there, right? Everything's in the garage, a
Good job on that, Joe.
That's awesome.
Yep, thanks.
Thank you. Item number 3, we received a letter, I'm sure the board also got it when we went to the engineer's office meeting. There were, we have a 2018 speed zone study that we're, want to submit. I don't know if the board has one, but I have one I'd like to run by them, by you guys. Firestone Road, between 55th and Snyder Road.
Oh, God.
On the side of the middle school there.
Yeah.
Isn't posted, so that makes it an automatic 55 miles an hour.
Right. Yeah.
And there is a school zone sign there, but when it's not posted, it's automatic 55 miles an hour. So I know, I talked to the county engineer about Snyder Road again, and he said, no, it just ain't gonna happen, getting that speed on because all the schools. I would at least like to get that down to 45 if
Good gosh, that's a
small.
small
Unless
strip.
the board has other streets that the residents have called.
No, I'm good with that.
We do get an enormous amount of resident phone calls in that area.
I was just thinking how it ties into our prior conversation with the students, and if it had any net effect, but it doesn't immediately, it's a immediately.
I think consensus, we're okay with that.
Yep.
Put that on.
Very
Good.
Item number 4 is, I took some pictures. We recently built a walkway from Old Mill Church to Veterans Park, because we got permission, Rob did, through church to park there during the market at night. This isn't 100% complete. We will put a limestone on top of that. We're letting it settle right now, and any rain and stuff will help that. But we put a pipe in there that'll help drain in anything that's north of there. But the guys did a great job getting it in about 3 days. The church was very happy. Rob said the people at the church are excited.
They're really excited because they have different programs where they bring kids and developmentally disabled over to the park, so it allows them the ability to come
That's unbelievable.
from church to park without getting in the roadway
Yeah,
and stuff.
it's a
just-
safe way to travel. And it helps the church, like Rob said, especially with the children with disabilities. But at our events where we're overflowing, we salute to veterans,
Farmers market.
farmers market.
It was really dangerous toward the end of last year, and we're having almost double the vendors this year, so.
So this is a huge benefit, and it's such a great partnership with that church.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they're wonderful
people, maybe send them a letter that,
Absolutely.
And it'll be wide enough for a golf cart or whatever to transport these elderly, so.
collaboration.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice job, Joe.
Yeah, very well done,
Once
guys.
you're here, it comes here, see, there's the road, this is Shannon. We're actually looking like.
From the church.
Schneider Road,
Gotcha.
this way, yeah.
Item number 5 is a resolution authorizing posting of permanent no parking anytime signs on Cumberland Avenue Northeast from 34th Street Northeast to the south boundary Plain Township line.
So-
Posted along both sides of the road.
So moved.
Second, it's been moved and seconded, discussion.
To clarify, this all started off of a email Eric and I got from Fonda Williams, the deputy mayor for the city of Canton, after meeting with another business owner over there. I know it was a team approach in tackling this. I mean, Tom, you were out, took a look, Joe took a look, John, you took a look, and so forth. And essentially, I mean, this is really being driven by Case Farms and using public roadways simply for their private benefit of parking lot and staging, and not that, hey, just park along the edge of the road's issue itself, but given the size of the equipment and the fact that John obviously is a former chief and current trustee, that's a significant emergency services hazard to where you couldn't get stuff through. And even though Case Farms is in the city of Canton from an annexation years ago, I mean, we've got to take the efforts to protect our roadways, and I think we need to monitor that closely once these are posted, because obviously within our priority of, with shared handles, but if if we find that these people are violating, we just need to ticket them, to drive home the point. If that doesn't seem to get the point through them, well, we'll determine what the further corrective action is.
And I've already spoken with Sergeant Hall, and we have a plan of action in place for that.
Perfect.
These pictures are amazing to me, that this
Yeah.
resident, or business owner took. I mean, he caught a lot of good problems, a lot of fire hydrants.
You know,
Joe and I went out, and the spots for the signs are already
It's
marked.
dangerous right there.
yeah,
That's
it's,
a perfect example of a stop sign that's been run over.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
awful.
Correct.
Total disregard, no
Yeah.
report, I mean, that,
No,
Yeah, we don't know who did it, so we
No.
don't
No.
know replacing it, so.
you know, I just wish no, we don't travel that road very often because it sits
Right,
off by
right,
itself, and it's, so it's not like you go by there and you can see that, but once we got that first email, I went that evening, it's like, oh my Lord, they're not even open, and they've got these trucks parked the wrong way, both sides of 32nd, which is not ours, so.
well, and I think to highlight for the sake of folks that aren't in the crowd and for anybody that watches our recording, you've got empty trailers that are parked on roads, graphically illustrated. Issue in and of itself, the one that just burns my rear end, truck blocks all access to fire hydrants. If you had a combustible
Oh.
situation,
Oh.
I mean, driver's ed 101 tells you you're not supposed to park within 100 foot, and we've got one that's totally blocking it, so.
In all those commercial buildings back there, you would definitely need that closer eye.
And I'll tell you what else, when Lisa and I was down there yesterday, the amount of litter.
Oh,
Yeah.
the litter is atrocious, and you know it's from those trucks,
Yeah.
and it's very, very bad. I might go pick it up myself, because it's atrocious.
could give maybe
I'll bring Joe with
We
me.
can call
Yep.
community service.
Officer Newman.
I
Yeah,
still
I
think Joe
just-
should go.
It's definitely a good move, I appreciate everybody jumping on this, because I think we all saw the same thing, and it was pretty obvious that we were gonna wait on this.
Will somebody convey just a fund tomorrow, confirmation with the,
We emailed, and then we tried to call, we'll continue to call.
just as long as they know what we've already passed on our end,
Mhm.
enforcing.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure that then the folks at Case are probably gonna go to the city screaming at that, but hey, not our issue.
No. They can go straight down 32, straight in.
Anything else? Roll call.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
And the last item is a resolution authorizing posting of permanent no parking anytime signs on 34th Street from Middle Branch Avenue to Coomerly, to be posted on both sides of the road.
So moved.
Second it?
Been moved and seconded, discussion, that's just the east-west portion of this whole nightmare, so it just connects to Coomer.
And I'm hoping we have them up by Friday, once the utilities all get marked, so.
Will you let me know when they're, so then I can let
Yes, most definitely.
our sheriff's department know?
Once they're up, can we take action once
Oh,
they're there?
immediate.
You have to wait a week or two,
No.
or once they're up, is it?
Instant.
Instant?
Also, I've already passed on to our deputies about the fire hydrants. Deputy Newman and Deputy Robinson, our commercial vehicle enforcement officers, have been advised. They were actually going to go try to make contact with Case Farms and talk to them.
Well, that'll be good, thank you. Yeah, that's good, thanks for doing that. Anything else?
Thank you.
Roll call.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Thanks, Joe, that takes us to zoning. Mr. Ferrara.
Thank you very much, sir. First item on the agenda is the monthly report.
Anybody have any questions of Tom? If anything you see, you get with him later.
I'm just curious when we start seeing another uptick in the residential construction with what we've got up here, Saratoga Hills, Wicker, the back extension of Wicker Creek, and then the golf courses should be starting later this year.
We've got, it shows 6 in January, new home starts. February, late in February, we got, I think 6 or 7 more home starts, but they will go into the March report.
Okay. Number 2.
Item number 2 is a resolution to authorize a refund of $71.40 for overpayment of a permit.
So moved.
Second, it's been moved in second discussion. Is this the one regarding the garage?
Yes.
And we had talked about that, so it's an issue that we've never been confronted with this situation before, because normally people, when they build a house, they build a garage with it, and then they do the accessory building. In this case, it was done the opposite,
Yeah.
and our language wasn't kind of set up for that, correct?
Right.
So we are gonna look at that, visit that, see how we can fix that. I mean, obviously, we don't wanna end up with a nightmare for a neighbor, but we wanna try to help these people out as well. So we're gonna go back and visit that, and look at that, and I'm sure.
Yes, sir.
Because that all comes down to definitions and square footage, and we just gotta go back and look at that language and make it work. Thanks. Anything else? Roll call.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
And that's all for zoning, sir.
Thanks, Tom. That takes us to parks. Mr. Steinberg.
Thank you, gentlemen. Item number 1 is the monthly report. I can entertain questions an hour later if you have them.
No questions on the monthly report, but I understand from all the people that I talked to and all the correspondence that Easter egg hunt was a phenomenal success.
It went pretty well.
Even
Well, I
had,
heard it was better.
Yeah, Rob is being humble.
That's
It's phenomenal. Ultra organized. Kids had baskets of eggs, had a great time. The color run was unbelievably awesome. And it was by far the best Easter egg hunt we've had.
Good job. Anything else? Any other questions of anything? Okay.
we may need to talk employee discipline later, not suckering a trustee into the collar run.
Yeah, I've got that.
I did that. Not only did I do it, I did it on a microphone so he couldn't bail on it, so.
Poor Scott comes out and I'm like, are you supporting the cure already? Your whole hair is
My head was pink.
whole head.
It was pink one other time, I remember.
Yeah, that's,
There's a video of him asking for more, by the way, and I've seen it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so I just wanted to, number 2 is just thank yous in regards to the Easter egg hunt. Again, it was a really nice event, and to our sheriff who came out with the Compu kids and the touch a truck and the extra deputies and the help was awesome. The road department with their touch truck, I was telling Joe this morning, I unlocked the doors for the touch truck of that brand new dump truck at 11:50, and by 11:50 and 30 seconds, there was a kid in there with his hands on the wheel, and he just thought he was in heaven. And obviously our fire department for the very same reasons as they came out, they helped out. The guys were just phenomenal. Made for a great event. I wanted to thank our administrator, obviously, and our administrative assistants for coming out and donning the costumes and really making it a festive event. Our NHS kids were once again fantastic. They laid 10,000 eggs on the ground in less than 45 minutes.
That was the best group of kids you've had.
They've done excellent. I mean, they were taking initiative. My staff did a great job, not only setting up and tearing down, but helping me facilitate, and we're always there and asking how to help. Concessions was busy. And I wanted to thank again our sponsors because they were awesome. The Krause's Pizza, Canton, and the Mucci team for everything that they did to help us put on the event. That's it.
Very good. Okay, thanks, Rob. So that takes us to the law director, Mr. Williams.
Thank you, Trustee Sabo. 2 items on the agenda, both are annexations. The first is what's referred to as the 1 Richmond Avenue annexation. It's just under 2 acres. As I understand it, that is likely to be developed for some low-income housing.
This is Mr. Gills.
That's correct. Item number 2 is an 8-acre annexation in the Hall of Fame Village area. It's Hall of Fame Village number 5 annexation. There is a map attached there where you can see the properties we're dealing with. They're in that same area that's been kind of
It was a pre-identified foot.
exactly within that area, so we have not been objecting to it.
No, these will follow that same.
They'll go right along the same line.
So these are type 2s.
They are,
I did.
both of them are actually
That's what I was
expedited.
gonna ask, the one on Richmond is
Yeah,
also a
that
type
is
2.
also an expedited type 2 annexation.
Okay, so that keeps inside millage
That's correct,
in place.
that's right.
Anything else? Anything else, Mr. Williams?
No, that's it.
Thank you. Takes us to communications.
Thank you. I have several communications this evening. The first one reads, thank you for giving us the opportunity to share ideas of connecting our campuses and connecting our community. Your positive feedback and motivation has encouraged us even more with this project. We look forward to working with you even more as we move ahead. And it's signed Evelyn, Maya, Jared, and Luke, the children who were just phenomenal at that presentation. And as a follow-up, Joe and I will be meeting with these students and their advisors on April 3rd at 8 a.m. at the middle school.
Yeah, that was actually a fun meeting.
Yes.
They were pretty passionate about what they were doing. Okay.
Then the next thank you is from Tony and Jim Catterouge to the fire department and reads, to each and every one of you from the Plain Township number 2 and number 3 fire stations, my husband Jim and I express our deep appreciation for answering all the calls to our residences. To aid Jim, it is comforting for me when you arrive so he would be safe. You were all so good to him. Your kindness is appreciated. All of you are a great group of dedicated men. Keep up the excellent dedication. You are very appreciated. Then the next one is a thank you from Citizens Bank, stating thank you for keeping our community safe. We truly appreciate all that you do. Enjoy the cookies. And Chief, we'll be looking forward to you sharing some of those cookies.
They didn't make it too far.
Yeah, you obviously have never been in a fire station.
I have a resolution before the board for Chief to purchase some cookies for administration. And that's the end of communications.
Okay, thank you. And this takes us to the portion of our meeting where we have public speaks. If there's anybody in the audience that wishes to speak, please state your name and the address for the fiscal officer. So our first person to speak is Tommy Wolf.
Address?
2615 Jaguar Street, Northeast Canton, Ohio, 44721. And all I just have to say is that the Easter egg hunt was really fun.
Well, thank you.
Well, there is a true critique of
That is right.
Thank you very much.
The constituents at hand.
Yes. Oh, you can't beat that, can you?
Nope.
Anybody else that wishes to speak? Are you here for like a school project or?
Scouts?
So you don't have to speak if you don't want, but I'm guessing you will have, do you have something that we will have to sign or something that demonstrates you were here? Or how does that work?
You can sign something when we're done.
Okay, that'll be good.
Thank you.
Okay, well, welcome. Hopefully you
Thank you.
learned and saw some things, so. All right, any concerns of fellow trustees?
You know, I didn't add it, but I just wanted to comment, give a thank you. The sheriff's office did an extremely good job. I don't know if it was a week or 2 weeks ago, at the Robin Hood Acres, Sherwood Village HOA meeting. This room was packed. I mean, Chuck can tell you, we were making sure nothing over excess of fire code, making sure folks could find seats, but obviously they just continue to reinforce what we did a lot of last year.
On the west side.
Trends and so forth that are being seen. Folks were extremely appreciative of it, and it was James Knight from the prosecutor's office who was also speaking, and then there was a pastor from the church that was speaking about some of the community efforts and so forth. So, gentlemen, thanks again for everything you guys do with those.
Anything?
No, thank you.
Concerns of the fiscal officer?
No concerns.
Okay, that takes us to the approval of minutes for the March 13th, 2018 meeting.
So moved.
Second's been moved and second discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
So then, we do have a need for an executive session. So be it hereby resolved by the Plain Township Board of Trustees, Stark County, Ohio, to adjourn to executive session at 6:54 PM from this regular meeting on March 27th, as authorized under Ohio Revised Code 121.22G for the purpose of the consideration of 1F, compensation of a public employee or official, 4, preparing for, conducting, or reviewing negotiations or bargaining sessions with public employees, and 7A, the information is directly related to a request for economic development assistance.
Yeah, you're going all night.
Oh, okay.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded, discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Go ahead, Tom.